All right. Hello, everybody. City of Salem, January 24th, 2024, City Council Committee on Government Services co-posted with the Committee of a Whole. Also in attendance will be members of the Board of Registrars. Will meet in person Monday, January 29, 2024 at 6 p.m. for the purpose of discussing and creating an elections commission and the process involved. This meeting will be held in City Council Chambers, 93 Washington Street, Salem, Massachusetts, second floor. Please click on the link below, password 06360 or telephone 877-853-5257, toll free 888-475-4499, webinar ID 843-7639. In-person is the primary method of public for such meetings, and secondary methods will be on Zoom. Persons requiring auxiliary aids for effective communication, sign language interpreter, assistive listening device, or print material in digital format or reasonable modification programs, service policies, activities may include the City of Salem ADA coordinator as soon as possible, no less than 2 business days before the program event. So tonight, again, we are here to discuss an elections commission. We have all members of government services and all members of committee of a whole. For our guests tonight, we have our city solicitor, Beth Renard, Lisa Camerata, our Human Resources Director. Thanks for coming, Lisa. Christine Ross from the League of Women Voters Salem. We have Lucy Corchado, Julio Mota of the Latino Leadership Coalition as the president. We also have Chuck Barton and Don Bates, Board of Registrars, as well as Eileen Simons, our city clerk. And while we're at it, we do have Rochelle Sport as well. Thanks for coming, Rochelle. So with that, we'll start off the meeting. The goal, I really believe, of tonight is to discuss how we go forward if we want to proceed with an elections commission, what that entails, what the process would be concerning the abolishing of a board of registrars if we do take this this pathway, and what we're doing as far as who's in charge of elections, whether it be the city clerk or an elections commissioner, through a home rule petition process. Nope. There you go. Can you hear me now? He's good? Okay. All right. So what we really have to decide tonight is how we want to go forward with a home rule petition. So as we know, this process takes a little while. It could take up to 6 months, it could take a year, it could take 2 years to get through the legislature. So my goal with this meeting is, if this is something that we want to go in the direction in with the city, we should be a little more pertinent about this discussion so we can get our home rule petition in. So what we have is a draft home rule petition that all councilors have. Yes? No, it's on. Sorry, guys. So now everyone in Zoom land can hear me, I'm assuming. Okay. Got it. Thank you. Okay. I think we're good. So, all right, so let's move on. Thank you, everybody. Sorry about that. So tonight, again, the goal is to figure out how we want to formulate a home rule petition going forward, how many members would we like to add to an elections commission, and the makeup of the elections commission. So with that, I can open it up to the council, and we can start discussing this. So yes, so a little more clarity on what's in front of the councilors is the home rule petition that was drafted by the city and Ms. Renard many years ago. And the way this is written currently is that the city clerk is still responsible for elections. So our goal tonight is to look at this document, and after talking to Ms. Renard, what comes out of committee tonight, what we'd like to do is talk to Lauren Goldberg of KP Law to vet out the language and to really figure out how we do this, legally with the home rule petition. So we're going to take this document, and this is kind of our draft document that we will work off of going forward for the home rule petition. Councilor Morcillo.
Just wondering if we should provide a little bit more background on the differences and why this step is being taken.
So as far as why we're talking about Elections Commission tonight is, after talking to our city clerk, Eileen, and just the way elections have changed over the last couple years with mail-in ballots, just a little more accessibility with voting, our city clerk is held to the letter of the law when it comes to elections. And it's a lot to digest, and it's a lot to do for an office. And I really feel that for efficiency's sake, it would be a little more just efficient to have it to be in its own department. That way, we can really make sure that not only the elections are done correctly, but when it comes to voter engagement, that will possibly be a little bit different. And I think the city residents deserve a clerk's office that can do their job effectively and not have to be put in a position every time there's an election that elections take priority over regular day-to-day business. And I think that's why I feel that an elections commission is a step that we should be looking into as a city. As many cities in the Commonwealth have either adopted this back in the 50s, 60s, what I've seen is that, for example, a city like Revere, they have an elections commission, and they have an elections commissioner. The city clerk, it seems to be like they just have time to really do the job effectively and give the resources they need to their elected officials, as well as their departments as well when it comes to clerks day-to-day, when it comes to marriage licenses, death certificates, and anything involving anything in the clerk's office. Councilor Morcillo.
Thank you, Chair. I do also want to take a few steps back and say that this was something that the city clerk does want, and like Councilor Varela said previously, the role of elections is it's a longer cycle right now, and it's an unfunded mandate, and with the early voter days 2 weeks before the election day that are required for federal elections, it's a lot of work. There's also a much increased number of mail-in ballots that are sent out. That's all processed, and it comes out of the city clerk's office, and it takes them off of their other job. As we learned in the Board of Registrars meeting over the summer, most cities have an election commission, and they did it a long time ago. And it's because it's a lot of work for a city clerk's office to take on the role of all of the things that they do normally, the records and the permits that they give out, and the city council business, and just everything that they do, plus take on the role of the cycles of elections. This past year in Salem has been a little bit different because we had a special election, but you're talking every year about 2 elections at least, right? And so I think this year it's 3. So it's a lot of time. It's at least a month after an election. The process for closing out the official voting that takes another 2 weeks. It's a lot of work, and so separating the 2 roles and separating it cleanly into the city clerk's job and her office, and then the elections office. The elections office overseen by an election commission, who would appoint an election commissioner, who would be a full-time employee doing nothing but elections. So you could see the benefit there that It could increase voter outreach, voter education. That we could do a lot more voter information locally. So it's all stuff that they just don't have time for right now. So splitting it apart is both a personnel thing. There's a budget item that's going to come out of it, but the first step is trying to figure out, one, if we want to move forward with this. Two, what does the election commission look like? And then filling in the details to submit a home rule petition to the state, and then waiting for the state to act on it.
Thank you, Councilor Morcillo. We're going to go with Councilor Cohen and then Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair Varela. A couple of things. I'm fully in support of an electoral commission, so I'm hoping that the Government Services Committee votes to have this in front of the full council on the 8th, so that we can, as you put it, expedite this getting to the legislature. I'm full agreement with you and Councilor Morcillo about, how this would make for a easier flow of work. But I also want to bring up some other things. I think it's really important just for the community at whole to have an independent electoral process. I'm personally incredibly impressed by the work that our clerk's office, Rochelle, and the people who work in the elections portion have done. When I first moved to Salem, I worked at the polls every single election until I ran for office. And there have been some great examples, including Councilor Stott's first election, where they proved that they are not only competent and professional, but did a superior job. And my assumption would be, as we work through this, is that the people who are in the positions now would just slide into the new positions and continue to do the work. So I'm fully in favor of this. I think it would really be great for Salem voters and the whole process to have an electoral commission that's independent and, have the ability, as Councilor Morcillo said, to have a full-time person who makes sure that elections are run based on whatever the legislature imposes on us. I was talking to the clerk last year about how the new rules made it so that there were just many more days of early voting. And, it's really a stress on that department. So I'm very supportive of this, and I hope we get it up in front of the council on the 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Varela. I also am in total agreement with this. I can't believe the huge undertaking that the elections office here and the city clerk have done handling our elections when it is a far more lengthy and involved process than it used to be, and a tremendous amount more work. And I think it does make sense to move forward with the home rule petition, because that's the immediate obstacle, and it can take a long length of time. And also, as I read the home rule petition, I just want to point out I appreciate some of the language of the importance of what that electoral commission will look like. I'd be interested to know that the board consists of 5 people. What kind of what brought about landing on a number of 5 persons? But I do appreciate that it references here the importance of representation. We're going to have to make sure, as it says here, it represents our diverse community here in Salem. That's going to be really important. I see here, it says it needs to be representation from different political parties, but also shall represent the racial and ethnic makeup of the city of Salem. And so I think there'll be a lot to have a lot of work needs to go in of what the commission will look like, so it's representative of all our community. And also, not to keep restating what has already been stated, but I do think, too, it leaves time open, for voter outreach and engagement and, all that good stuff, because we'd love to see our, the percentage of the number of people that vote here. We really need to see that go up. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to really stress and add on to that as well about the voter engagement and outreach and education. In the research I was able to do about other cities that have a dedicated department that is able to have these resources to really focus on that, we do see an average pretty significantly higher voter turnout. So I thought that was pretty notable and exciting. We have a lot of dedicated advocates and organizations that, have really been working on increasing voter turnout, especially in certain neighborhoods. Some of them are in this room, but I think, having a dedicated department that could really focus on that would be quite a game changer. So very excited and in support of this as well.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Watson-Felt, then Councillor Presniewski.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add to everything that has been said so far, three things. I think a couple of the other benefits also is that with a dedicated staff that has their full-time job focused on these conversations, we can also further have conversations around the other open items in front of us, which is, should we be looking at other voter technologies? Should we be looking at other process or formatting of voting, such as ranked choice? These conversations are really hard to make progress on in either direction, one way or the other, because they always require additional work, research, and burden on our current clerk staff. And so it would be great to be able to make some progress in either direction on those conversations. I do want to raise a couple of concerns that were brought to me from some constituents, just because that's my job, but I think it's worthy of discussion, which is the impact on the annual budget. How many people we're talking about adding to the full bill here as full-time employees, what that looks like for the city, knowing that the budget is never an easy conversation, and we've got some tight stuff coming up, I think, in the next couple of years is our guess, is our forecast. So just being really intentional and conscious about that part of the conversation, what this will cost. That having been said, I think those concerns need to be raised and discussed. Maybe Anna Friedman can help us project. Once we know what this looks like, maybe Anna could help us project some pricing, some costs, just to be really transparent about that. I am in favor of the Elections Commission myself personally. I think that the independent, every reason that's already been stated tonight, I double down on. But I did want to raise that on behalf of the constituents that came my way. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Varela. The idea does sound great. Spreading out the responsibility makes things easier for everybody. My concerns, and I think I would like to hear from our clerk, is exactly how is this going to be structured? How is it going to affect her current employees? Who does she lose from her office? Who doesn't she lose? How many new personnel are we hiring? What are the costs going to be? Who is in charge of this? Do they report to our clerk? Do they report to the mayor? Again, what are the advantages? Obviously, we've all hearing the advantages, which sound good, but are there any disadvantages? And again, the cost and how many more bodies we're adding to this. So those are just my concerns at this point. We're early in the stage for this, so I think they'll all be answered soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Councillor. Eileen and I have been talking about this as well, and I know Eileen has talked to other councillors about the specificities, about how we make this work, how do we work in the personnel, what's being lost from the clerk's office, what's an additional staff member, or if two, or if none. So with that, I would love for Eileen, if you'd like to say a couple words.
Good evening. Is this working, or I can go up there?
Testing.
Do you know? Do you have the?
No. Yep. There you go.
On? Okay. All right. Thank you all for having me here this evening. Before I just go into any specifics or any anything directly. I just like to make a couple of comments. I kind of cringe when a couple of the councilors, and I'm sure it's not intentionally, but when we say that we want to make sure that the elections are done correctly, I do cringe a little bit on those words because we do the elections correctly. I have no doubt on any of us in the elections office or my department that we don't do the elections correctly. So I just want to throw that out there in case people hear that word out there. I just want to make sure we do follow the letter of the law and, we be as efficiently as we can. Can there more that can be done? Absolutely. But none of us in the city clerk's office is afraid of hard work. I heard that a lot. It's a lot of work, and yes, it is. And I just want to make sure people know that we're not afraid of the hard work. We do it. If we have to do it, we will continue to do it. It won't affect voters or anybody at all if this doesn't get accomplished. So I just want to those are a couple things I did take away and wanted to make sure. I think it just becomes down to city council work versus elections, and it's very hard, at least for me, as a person, to give 100% to each job in itself. They're like two different jobs, and that's where this is mostly coming from in terms of wanting to give 100%, but can't, and unfortunately something gives, and I believe at this point where the new voting laws are permanent, it's become to that of trying to look at other ways to run the election. But I have I have all the confidence in the world in the people that are out there now and the people that run it now. But so in terms of what it looks like, I guess that would be up to the will of the body of how your home rule petition will be worded. I do know that right now, with it was very helpful that the mayor gave us a full-time person in the office. I think that has made a lot of difference in a short period of time. So I'm thankful for that. But I do believe with if this was to happen and the city clerk's office is not involved, or let's just say I divide it up in rooms. If I'm not totally involved if I'm not involved in the elections and the assistant for council is not involved in the elections, that's two bodies that, put in all the time, that all the extra hours, the weekends, et cetera, to be there to set up, break down. So I am looking at, I know that there should be at least one extra body, if not two, out there, because they are going to be losing that. I would hope that we could structure something in a way with our vital records room, which is sort of our room 3, could continue to do what they might be able to do to help the elections, where it's counting of the ballots or simple things like that. So maybe there can be some overlap with the other departments as well, with that department as well. And so let's see, in terms of, again, the structure and the costs involved in that, I think that's why the human resources manager is here, to maybe give some breakdowns of what, what one full-time employee is equivalent to costs. But if I was to note down some of the things that if I had a wish list that I, could have done or wanted to do over these years, I think a lot of you hit it on the head with, better voter education, definitely, especially for those that are first-time voters or unfamiliar to the voting process. I think more could be done on that. Voter registration drives at the high school. I was trying to implement a mentoring program with the high school students, especially those that were involved in the Latino club, so we could mentor them and get them going and, want to work and stay with us and, work up to wardens and clerks. Definitely more education on census forms. I mean, that's really the start of the election process in terms of make sure they're staying on the active voting list. There would be wonderful to have another bilingual person out there. I know we've tried to do that in the past, and it works at times, and sometimes we don't have anybody out there. Better social media to push out notifications, better website. I think a lot more could be done if that was just my full-time, one concentration of that job. The outreach that I've done in the beginning, haven't done in a while, to Latino Coalition, to VOCES, to Salem State Civic Engagement, like Women League of Voters, that is kind of unfortunately not be able to happen as much as it can or should. So those are the reasons why I kind of, I love elections, don't get me wrong, but I think it's just come to the point that it's difficult to run, to do both things 100% that I would want to give to each department.
Thank you, Eileen. Not sure if Lisa wanted to say a little bit about this. I know this is very early on the discussion when it comes to personnel and how we do this. So I think we do have to digest how we're going to do this first. So I'm not sure if you had anything to add.
For some of the employees. So for the most part, we have bargaining unit employees in that department, right? 3 in room 3, and they're all assistant registrars, so they're at job grade, I want to say 14. And then we have 2 bargaining unit employees in the elections division, so we have 2 full-time employees there. I don't see anybody, I don't see us letting anybody go. I mean, if anything, we would bring somebody on board. I'm guessing that they would probably start at the same step, which is the principal clerk / assistant registrar. And right now, I mean, that salary on June 30th of this year is about $9.95 a week. So that's just something to think about moving forward, because that'll be the least amount that somebody would come on board, depending on if this is a year down the road. Typically with our AFSCME unit, the contractual raises have been, once we've done the contract, has been maybe 2%. Each year, depending on when we settle and if there's any retro involved in there. So that just might be something to think about down the road. I don't see us losing anybody. I would see this would definitely be a cost, which I think a couple of the councilors mentioned, so we should definitely think about that. I know that you mentioned other communities have election commissions. I don't know how many employees are in each division. Maybe that's something to look at to see what that structure looks like, and then maybe we could do a better projection. That might help us.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. I did have a conversation with Paul Fahey of the City of Revere, who is the elections commissioner, and going forward, he is more than happy to come on in and discuss the nuances of his department and how they make the makeup of it and how they actually run their department. So that's fantastic. I'm grateful that he's willing to help. One reason we did have the invitees here, Lucy, Julio, League of Women Voters, we definitely want to hear what our stakeholders of the city, as well as the general public, have to say as far as why we want this. So before that, I think, and our registrars as well, we want to hear from. Thank you, Jeff. So with that, I would love for you guys to come up if you'd like to, talk to little about why this would be a positive move in the direction for our city, and maybe talk about, I know, Lucy, you were part of the original working group when it came to the formulation of this document, and to give a little backup on that would also be fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you, councilors, for the invitation. I probably don't need that, actually. I do need it? Okay, I'm pretty loud. Lucy Corchado, 1 Chase Street, Unit 2. So I think basically with regards to kind of the work that has been done in the past, it's helpful to know kind of some of the, I think, work that you all are doing and context to that. And I just wanted to share some of the work that had been done by the Latino Leadership Coalition, the Point Neighborhood Association, the League of Women Voters. It's kind of a timeline of where we started seeing maybe some improvements could be made, dating back to 2005. So this isn't anything that is brand new. There were, as you can see through the timeline, and I'm not going to focus on so much on the past. I just wanted, for the councilor's sake, to have kind of the history that we've had working, and I want to say that things have definitely improved, and I appreciate all the work that has been done by this body as well as through the clerk's office. Eileen immediately reached out to the Latino Leadership Coalition when she first became city clerk to work with us in trying to get the word out, do some voter education, which is still top of priority for us, and recognizing that need, but also recognizing how much work is involved. And we are all volunteers also in the organization. There's turnover, there's, familial obligations and work obligations, and so folks obviously are limited. I wanted to also recognize, I saw that Cheryl Lapointe came in. We worked really heavily with her, and that's probably where some of the initial, okay, how can we work together to make the voter experience fulfilling? We had a lot of challenges, and like I said, I think things have definitely improved thanks to the work that the city clerk's office did, along with other organizations that aligned with our mission. I, too, am also kind of learning a little bit more about what the Elections Commission is going to look like. We've had conversations with the Board of Registrars in the past. We were able to recommend a Latino resident to join the Board of Registrars, to also kind of have that voice in that seat. Definitely with regards to the poll workers, very diversified. We have translators. I think the only thing that we're still seeing a little bit is the poll worker training in assisting folks who maybe have done it for many years, or even new to the process, is just having enough training to understand what some of the challenges may be. There's, the language issues, understanding when someone comes in with an accent, maybe not finding them quickly on the active voter list, making sure that provisional ballots are actually given as well, and that, we've had issues where folks have come in and because they haven't been found, they're turned away, and so that's all part of, I think, the voter education as well, that we, as a Latino Leadership Coalition and the Neighborhood Association, are willing to work with the residents in just making sure that they know what their rights are and be able to vote, which is what they want to do, what they're, excited to do. And folks who have just recently become citizens also learning the new process. Many have come from countries that, completely different and even fearful of executing their vote. And so it's a different process, but they want to learn, they want to exercise their right, and, hoping that we all collectively work together to ensure that they do that. But I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about the makeup of the commission and the exact work, how often they would meet. I'm glad to hear that budget-wise, it shouldn't be, too much of an issue, as well as keeping the current staff and adding to the staff. I think that's great. So we're moving forward, and I applaud all of you for the great work, and looking forward to seeing where this goes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Corchado, as always. And Councilor. Would anyone else like to come up? Mr. Mota? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Should I introduce myself, say the address? So my name is Julio Mota, 9 Japonica Street. So I come before the council today representing the Latino Leadership Coalition, not the mayor's office. My views do not represent the views of anyone in the office or the mayor himself. I should also note that I was a former employee of the elections office just a few years ago. I don't have too much to say tonight. I'm interested in this process and certainly want to learn more about how we're going to do this. If we do this, we'll be perhaps just the second community in the North Shore to do this after Revere, which is a similar community to us. I checked the population. They have about 10K more in population than us. So my first thoughts are that I see potential for benefit here. I kind of more or less agree with what Eileen said earlier, which is that, prior to this, I did not think the clerk's office was failing in any aspect. I think they've done their job. I'm biased, obviously, but I think they've done their job very well. But I think there's always room for improvement, especially with voter engagement. It's an issue here in Salem. We saw in the last election that I don't want to say Latino participation in particular, but at least participation in Ward 1, Precinct 2 was pretty low. And this could be a tool to remedying that and just general voter apathy across the board. So my first thoughts as a representative of the Latino Leadership Coalition are that I believe this could be a good thing. It's a new thing, and this body should be very considerate and plan this very carefully. And I look forward to learning more. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio. We do have Mr. Don Bates on Zoom. Don, if you'd like to unmute yourself and speak, that'd be fantastic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Can you hear me, Counselor?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, just as a Board of Register, a member of the board, I've watched the city clerk work very hard on these elections and working nights and weekends, and if anything, overworked. I'm surprised, to be honest with you, that the elections have gone all as well as they have. It's really her dedication, her staff's dedication that they have. Now, it sounds to me like this election commission is going to take a while as we work through it and what it's going to be. And it sounds like it's a year, 2 years down the line. We also have the major election, the presidential election coming up very soon. And if anything, I think you need to kind of look at also temporary employees meeting. I mean, that might be the way to go during the transition part of this. As far as being a favorite election commission, it sounds positive. I want to hear the pros, and I also want to hear the cons of it as well. But I would encourage you to really take a good look at the staffing of the city clerk's office in the coming elections coming up, and add any temporary help that would help them. And I think our city clerk would guide you on that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Yep.
Okay, so your hand. There we go. All right. So one thing we kind of wanted to get into tonight was the makeup of the actual home rule petition. So there's two main components to this, and I know we do have our city solicitor here as well to answer any specific questions. But the two things that we really have to decide on if we want to move forward with this is what's going to happen is once this is enacted, we abolish the Board of Registrars, and all members of the registrars immediately become members of the Elections Commission to finish out their term. What this document is saying is that we're looking to add 2 additional elections commissioners to the body, which will be elected by the mayor and, appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council. So that's one part. The other part is who is in actual responsibility of the elections. Since we're looking to take this out of the clerk's office, we have to figure out the language on who's actually running the elections. And I know after talking to Beth, some of this language in this document is there because of Massachusetts general laws, where it does say that the clerk is ultimately responsible for elections. One thing that we have to look into, and this is a question for Beth, is when it comes to who appoints the elections, call it administrator or commissioner, the actual full-time person responsible for elections. Is it appointed by the mayor, or is it appointed by the actual elections commissioners themselves, the appointed body? So that's one question I have for Beth. And I think those are the two big components of this makeup of this document here and going forward as far as how we want to do this. So with that, Beth, if you may, thank you so much.
Good evening. So today I looked at several cities and towns that have elections commissions, and the majority of them, the clerk is still involved. I did find the city of Everett that has an election commission, and the way that they have done it, and I'll read it to you. There's a section in their home rule petition that says that the Board of Election Commissioners, to assist the board, the mayor may appoint assistant commissioners, which now we have the assistant registrars, who shall have the powers of assistant registrars and shall perform the duties as requested by the board. The city clerk shall provide administrative and operational support to the board and shall serve as a department head for the board, provided, however, that the mayor may appoint an executive director of the Board of Election Commissioners to be responsible for the management and supervision of election-related functions. So if the city clerk is no longer going to be involved, we need to look at different models, and this is just from Everett, whereby they have an executive director who manages the day-to-day supervision of the election-related functions, but the city clerk is still the department head, of the as she is now. But she does that in Everett. They have a manager or an executive director who runs the elections and sits under the city clerk. So what I propose is that we look at several different models. I'll work with the city clerk to get them from the various communities, and so you can take a look at the different models that are out there. Unless you have a preference at this point, that's what I would suggest at that point.
Excellent. Thank you, Beth. Do any other counselors have any questions about that? I know that's a lot to unwrap, and I think that it would be hasty to, obviously, just speaking out loud, to move this right to general counsel. We need to figure out that makeup of that, and that's a huge part of this. So I would offer anyone would like to discuss that part of it. Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair Varela. So for clarity, because I remember, previous home rule petitions, and they tend to seem to just give us an overall permission to move forward and then work on all the detail, and then, we move forward with how we want to, detail the process. I guess my confusion lies in, to submit a home rule petition, we are required to include decisions on our process. Like, we would need to, in just filing a home rule petition, to have an elections commission, then we need to have a whole process in place that the mayor would be appointing an executive director, city clerk would still oversee that. We'd have 5 members of our elections commission. So I guess my question to you, to Beth, through you is, do we have to have all those decisions made and spelled out to submit a home rule petition? I'm just not clear on it. Thank you.
General law, and if we are going to do something different, and right now we have a special act that requires a board of registrars, so if we're going to change that, we need to spell out how that's going to be changed. If it's contrary to what our special act says, or if it's contrary to general law, then we need to spell that out, because it will be specific to Salem.
Go ahead and follow up.
Yes, quick follow-up. Okay, so that adds the clarity that we have a lot to decide on before we can even move forward to a home rule petition. I got that straight. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair Varela. So I'm going to rescind my desire to have this in front of the council on the 8th, maybe a few days after that. A couple of things regarding home rule petitions. So because this is affected by the general law, we have had home rule petitions like the fossil-free one that didn't have a rule or an ordinance attached, and that was specific. And that was because we didn't want to get denied if the Department of Energy Resources didn't like our ordinance. In this case, if I'm correct, to the city solicitor, because the general law supersedes this, we kind of have to have more detail in our petition. And I'm also, here's another query to the solicitor, that it seems like it would make sense to have in the petition who the appointing body would be. My personal preference is there's an executive director or commission or whatever you want to call the paid position that would run the elections, and that person would appoint people to be confirmed by the city council. If the solicitor could answer those.
So let me look at that. I need a little time to research that, if you don't mind. So I could report back at the next meeting if that's okay.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, any other counselors have any other questions? I know there's a lot to discuss here, and I think that looking at different models, Councilor Presniewski.
Thank you, Chair Varela. After learning what we're learning, this is going to be quite a feat to, it looks like we have to put everything together before we submit the whole home rule petition to be approved. So I'm just curious as who's going to be responsible for structuring all this and presenting it to the council. Are we going to have a separate committee? Is it going to be a joint committee with the clerks, with the city? How is the group going to get together and put together a plan for this to be proposed?
Thank you, Councilor Presniewski. I think that what we should be doing is we should look at the other models of other cities have done from around our surrounding communities and bring to the table in another meeting the options we have that have set legal precedent. And from there, kind of flesh out what we feel would work best for Salem going forward. That would be my suggestion. Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair Varela. And since it's a committee meeting, is it okay to be raising my hand more than twice? Okay, I don't want to break any protocol. So I just want to make sure I was correct. And you had spoken to someone from Revere. They've done this, and Beth referenced Everett. So I think having somebody come in from, one of the communities that has this in place, knowing how long they've had it in place, so maybe they have some data and information on how it's played out for them. I think that would be helpful. Thanks.
Excellent, definitely. And after talking to Beth, this is something that we would definitely talk to Lauren Goldberg of KP Law before we submit anything with language to make sure that it is correct. Any other counselors have any other dialogue? If not, I would open it up to the public. Anyone in the audience like to speak on the matter, or anyone on Zoom land? I know it's riveting stuff here. It is, actually.
Good evening. I'm Christine Ross. I'm with the League of Women Voters Salem. And I'm a co-chair with Sam Giffen of the Voter Services Committee of the Salem League. And our mission is to empower voters, support an informed and engaged citizenry, and so this is of great interest to us. We're happy to see the council begin discussions of an electoral commission. It's a very interesting idea and potentially promising idea. We do look forward to seeing the details. We haven't seen any, so it's difficult to speak in great detail about this tonight, but I'm glad you're taking it up and I'm glad you're talking about it. And we'd like to stay informed and involved. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. So with that, I plan on moving pretty quickly with this. This is not going to be something that we're going to just sit on. I plan on, with hopefully possibly another counselor here, being very productive and active in continuing this conversation, only because we know how long it could potentially take a home rule petition before we go on to the next step. So with that, this is probably one of my biggest priorities going forward for this calendar year. So I do plan on having quite a few meetings about this, and not as quickly as possible, but when we we get the info from Beth, we get some models, I would like to go forward with not only the committee, but committee of a whole, so we can really flesh this out as well. So I'll call again anyone on Zoom land that would like to speak. Councillor Watson-Felt.
Thanks, Chair. Just one last question. If this were to continue as it is currently in government services co-posted, we would continue to meet co-posted. Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Yeah. Yes, please.
My name's Kevin Johnson. I run an organization called Election Reformers Network, and that's an organization that focuses on issues of election governance. I'm based in Newton. I previously served on the Board of Common Cause in Massachusetts. And I just introduced myself as a potential resource. We spent a lot of time thinking about how best to organize bodies that supervise elections, both at the state and local level. And the focus that we are interested in is particularly about, frankly, the political party piece to it. And to what extent, how are parties involved? Do parties give a list of nominees that the mayor chooses from, which is a model used in a lot of Massachusetts cities? And is that appropriate going forward? This year, I think the registration figures show something like 60% of Massachusetts registered voters are unenrolled. About 10% are registered with the Republican Party. There's cities where 2 of the 4 commissioners are named by the Republican Party. Does that make sense? Does it make sense for people to be on a board that's supposed to create, I've heard the word independence a lot, that's supposed to make elections independent, who are kind of put there, by the action of their local party? Are they representing the party? Are they representing? That's an issue that we look at. I don't know any of the details of the plans. I'm just saying I can be a resource on that issue if that's a topic of interest to the commission. Thank you for giving me a chance.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right. So with that, would anyone like to make a motion? Would you like to stay here all night and talk about this, or what do we want to do? Yeah. Councilor Presniewski.
I make a motion that we continue this to the next event that you schedule, and that at that event we have speaker or speakers from other communities who will give us some knowledge on how they got to be where they are and input on how it works, or advantages and disadvantages. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Presniewski would make a motion for this to remain in the committee, seconded by Councilor Merkel. Right, so we will do a vote. We'll just do a hand vote. All those in favor of remaining committee? I see 4 hands. Yeah, four hands plus my own. Matter carries. Would anybody like to make another motion? Thank you, Councilor Merkel. Motions to adjourn. All those in favor? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.